What's going on, everybody? So I just wanted to go ahead and update you something with a little bit of Rimworld content stuff here. So basically, I ran through trying to figure out what this vanilla factions expanded and kind of like figure out how these mods work that I added in for the upcoming playthrough, just to kind of see what to expect for when I go through it in my actual playthrough and whatnot. So I'm doing like this little spoof run here. And this recording is the perfect footage that I could have ever gotten to show you guys about what I'm talking about when I wanted to make this video and mention it. So, the first thing that I found out from this Mechanoids mod, number one, is that this mod is so horrendously scaled against the player, it's not even funny. And I'm so glad that I tested this before we jumped into it. I'm not even going to be using particular settings for the way that this works. I'm going to be keeping everything vanilla and default. But what I'm going to wind up doing is just completely pushing back the frequency of spawns to 5 years on it, and then I'm going to spawn in ships as I feel that they're necessary throughout the playthrough. And the main reasoning being is just because this shit's fucking insane, the things that they have going against you when you actually do these events and whatnot. I don't have a problem with the way that the actual mod works mechanically in any way, shape, or form, aside from the unfortunate RNG nightmare that it could be during the playthrough. My first ship that spawned was not even a year into the game, and they threw a cruiser at me. And if anybody is unaware of just the words and phrasing of the different ships that can drop, a cruiser is equipped by default with 2 mortars on it, and they just start firing. They're not asleep like mechanoid clusters. They immediately start firing upon you once you land and go into the map. So it's literally, you like just witness this shit when it eventually gets here. The RNG nightmare that is a mortar fight. Back and forth. I have 5 fucking colonists on me right now, which is just enough to hit the amount to be able to spawn in a cruiser, to hit the threshold, and this immediately got thrown at me, and the first time I had gone through it when I was playtesting this over at Ricky's house, it went much smoother that time over there, but that's because they kept missing. It was because their RNG was way worse than mine, and we could actually take out the mortars and then take out the ship afterwards. And I do have a method on how I intend on actually tackling these attacks later on to make them entertaining for you guys. First and foremost, I don't really care much for kill boxes in this game. They're horrendous things that are almost necessary for some of the content, and not content, but some of the combat situations you find yourself in Rimworld, but I find them horrendously boring, so we're not going to be using them like fucking at all, really. In this, like, I'll have certain areas for where we wind up doing things, but I find the game is way more fun if you just scale the raids down a bit and just don't worry about building a fucking kill box, to be honest with you, and just play the game like that. When you don't have 40 billion people storming at you and you don't have a kill box, it just feels way more engaging to actually go into those combat circumstances against a normal number of fucking people that are running at your base. So that's really the best way that I can explain that one to you. But this whole cruiser event it would have, if it was in the actual game, the actual playthrough that we did, it would have resulted in me stopping playing the game, and I would have ended the whole entire playthrough right then and there. Because it also would have broken one of my rules that I would have had for the playthrough, which is RPG, obviously, that you can see right there, that don't ask why RPG is a male fox girl. It doesn't make sense at all, but you can do that with the Monster Girls mod. RPG actually would have died in this circumstance, in the skirmish, had it have been real. And if RPG dies, that would be the end of the playthrough, because that's supposed to represent me during the playthrough. So if I die, then congratulations. That is your humble host that just got fucking shelled the hell out of by Mechanoids. So that would have been the end of the run right then and there, guys. And again, let me bring this one up. This is less than a year into the playthrough. We didn't even reach winter time yet in this spoof playthrough right here, and that would have been the entire end of the run. I wasn't kidding when I said that I'm not that great at the game. So I want to make this entertaining while also not turning things down to just such a ridiculous level that it's just unenjoyable to play through. And my counteract in the way that I'm planning on going about this is I'm just going to make it more narratively driven than anything, and I'm actually going to wind up like voicing things out and getting into character and stuff like that, and just kind of making it look like it's an actual story. Just writing out my own story and doing so, you know? Rather than making it just like a crazy against all odds mechanoid bullshit thing. And of course, by the way, we had like the tankiest fucking mechanoids in this particular cruiser that dropped. The first time I did this around, it was just lancers and pikemen, so they really weren't that hard to deal with. And every frigate that I have ever dealt with when I've tried to take down a frigate, it's always like a million scythers. Not like a million, I would say more like anywhere between 4 to 6, which you can take them down pretty easily by funneling them through one area with EMP grenades. They're really not that big of a bother, but again, if it wasn't for the mortars during this raid, this wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad of an issue, because all you really need is just kind of EMP grenades. And I know that this mod has those long-range missiles in the game, but number one, they make impassable tiles that are craters all over the place, which is, while cool, really fucking dumb. And if the entire mod is kind of balanced around that and not going anywhere near those, then that's silly. You also kind of need to get the supplies that are on those if you wanted to get into the factory building aspect of the game. So I don't see a point in wanting to use, to a massive extent, the long-range missile launcher, or using to a large extent just shelling the hell out of their base. And I've tried shelling with over 50 fucking high explosive rounds out of mortars onto through artillery at their bases over the world, and that's never taken out a mechanoid ship before by doing that. However, I will say 2 anti-grain warheads do a phenomenal fucking job at doing that. If I had more than 2 mortars, though, I bet it also would be a lot better, and you would yield better results in doing these things, which that'll have to be something that we just test later. I might even do it now. But from everything that I have tested out with this, guys, it's just the best thing that I can say is, from what I've seen so far, the best way to balance it around is just waiting until it pops in at a way later date in the game, where I have more than 4 battle-ready colonists to throw into a run that actually have gear. And I've playtested all of these with assault rifles. I've never really used sniper rifles for them, though, but I have used some pretty high-end assault rifles on all of my colonists during these runs, and as you saw earlier, even though they were just normal assault rifles anyway, though, they really didn't do a whole lot of work to those 3 mechanoids that were in front of them. That was not very many mechanoids at all, and they just had no, they could not cut through them. And then again, with the explosions and the mortars, that just happened to get really fucking lucky. I have never been hit by that many mortars from a cruiser ship before in the middle of a firefight between the mechanoids. I have never in all of my test runs been hit with like 3 or 4 shells like that, so that was just extraordinarily unlucky. Especially considering that none of my shells hit any of their mortars to cut anything back, so that was just, that was RNG nightmare right there. I mean, I know I can save scum during the playthrough, and you guys would never be the wiser for it, though, but, like, this is a large reasoning why I play Rimworld with the developer mode on at all times and do that kind of stuff. I'm going to disable it so that you don't see the icons on the top of the playthrough as I'm going through it until I get to, like, the narrative bits where I start talking like my character and stuff, because I'm going to have him, like, writing at a writing desk and shit, and then zoom in and play things in the back. It's going to be so cool, guys. It's going to be so cool. I'm going to get wicked into it, but that's the whole entire idea that I'm trying to do, is like, it's kind of like a story that I'm putting out rather than actually doing anything super difficult. But I don't want it to be super boring where it's just the entire game just being attacked and raided by like 2 fucking tribal people the whole game. I want to make sure that it is something entertaining for you guys to enjoy, and I'm going to time-lapse the shit out of it, and I'll show you guys all of my settings that I have set up so far for it, as well as the scenario when it is fully established, and we'll go from there. But I just have a bit more testing to do with these ships and clusters, or not the clusters, but mostly just the ships and events, to see where I want to go with this thing, to get my absolute settings set in stone on how I want to go about doing this, as well as probably getting a few more colonists in here and testing more people, as well as more mortars and artillery for things. But I think that's the best way that we're going to go about it, is I'm literally just going to balance it around trying to, like, get money to buy anti-grain warheads, maybe, but that also poses a small story inconsistency, where if I can buy 2 anti-grain warheads to pump into my mortars and take out an entire mechanoid ship base, why can none of the other factions do it? Specifically, the Rabby race that are pretty much warfaring as fuck. We're actually going to be using one of the Rabby storytellers as our storyteller for this playthrough. Just because Cassandra Classic is a little too Times New Roman and I wanted to do something interesting. But anyway, that's basically the idea that I have of this playthrough right there, so just enjoy the bullshit that you guys see through here. I'm probably going to have this video running a little bit longer than the actual talking bit that I have here, but that's all that I have come to tell you guys. I have been playtesting the shit out of the Mechanoids mod to get a good understanding of it, to know how things work, and I think I've got a good idea on how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to slowly spawn ships over time, because I know how the point system works now to a pretty decent extent. And I know how to be able to balance my raids so that they work, and to be able to get maybe a decent EMP grenade setup to stop them from fucking us up. We also have non-lethal weapons in here for being able to get a number of colonists, and the reason being is because I have set up some story-specific colonists with a lot of relations to the main group that we'll be having when we go into the game, and you don't want those debuffs from those people dying, number one, but number two, they're actually pretty strong colonists that are supposed to be plot essential. I do want to do a bit of improv to the plot, but it is supposed to be kind of geared in a way where you would like to shoot them with a dart gun and then just fucking influence them to join your colony or something. So that's what we're going to be rolling with, and that dart gun isn't as OP as you would think it is with the non-lethal weapons mod, by the way, just because the dart gun can completely be deflected by armor, and that is not going to do you much good if it doesn't hit an unarmored area. So it can be, you know, fought around, is what I'm saying, and two of the different colonists, at least, that are part of the people that we'll be seeing throughout the playthrough actually are fucking geared with armor. I think recon armor very specifically, so yeah, I don't think it's going to go through their recon armor, but we'll have to figure out how that one goes later on down the line. Worst case scenario, I guess we tase the shit out of them and then just punch them until they fall over. So, I will see you guys later on. Enjoy this shit show.